everything that is said and transcribed.
Good evening, folks. Welcome to the November version of the Amherst Planning Board. We'll do some housekeeping first. First, folks, we'd appreciate it if everyone would, their cell phones, put them on mute, so that when someone is up here, they're not disrupted by that or that we can't hear that. In the event that we have to evacuate for any reason, all right, certainly there's exits out the back there. Do not come this way or out this way, please. All right, little housekeeping here. From a board's perspective, the planning board, there are members that are volunteers appointed by the town board. Town board are elected officials. The planning board makes final decisions on site plans and subdivisions. Okay, the town board receives recommendations from the planning board and makes final decisions on rezonings. Advisory only on rezonings and comprehensive plan amendments, making recommendations to the town board. Procedures and ground rules for public hearings. The petitioner will present to the board on the agenda item. The board will ask questions and converse with the petitioner. The chair will then ask if anyone from the public has comments or questions on the agenda item before them. The public comments are then to be directed to the planning board members. The planning board will ask the petitioner to address any questions and or comments to the public. There is a laser right over there, pointer attached to the podium to be used during the hearing. If you use a laser pointer, please refer to the large screen to the left of the dais. Okay? Presentations by the petitioner are 15 minutes. Comments by the neighborhood resident spokesperson are 15 minutes. Individual speakers are 3 minutes. We'll ask that as each of the items are before us this evening, that afterwards you line up on this side so I can see if someone wants to get up to speak to us, and then follow through. When you come up, especially for the first item this evening, please sign in, correct? That's what you need. So when you're up there, if you're going to speak on the first item, please sign in tonight. Roll call, please.
Shamil. Here. Gill.
Here.
Gilmore.
Here.
Giuliani.
Here.
Khan.
Here.
Conversi. Here. Raphael.
Here. Thank you. We have a full board here this evening. All right, we will start off with the first item. The first item this evening, recommendations to the town board to approve the planned unit development application, subpart 2023-11, property located at 772 North Forest Road, 385 and 391 Maple Road. Mr. Howard.
Good evening, Planning Board. Daniel Howard, Town Planning Director, on the petition for the proposed planned unit development. Next slide, please. So folks are probably familiar with this site. It's been the topic of discussion many times over the last several years. This is the former Westwood Country Club golf course.
I think people are having a hard time hearing. We're having a little bit of a hard time hearing.
You want me to talk louder? Is that what you're saying? Is that? Okay, I'll try. How about that? Any better? Okay, all right, I'll give it a shot here. You're asking me to talk and chew gum at the same time, so that'll be good.
Talk a little louder.
Okay, all right. Anyway, this is the former Westwood Country Club, as I mentioned, located at the in the area around Sheridan Drive, Maple Road, and North Forest Road. Ellicott Creek traverses it on the east side. It's an area that is zoned recreation conservation. It's about approximately 170 acres in size. This is a petition from the town to commence work on developing the Amherst Central Park. Next slide, Tom. So the PUD, or planned unit development process, is required for development or redevelopment of areas, lots in particular, measuring 30 acres or more. The purpose of the PUD process or development plan is to permit coordinated developments that allow flexibility to respond to market demands and the needs of tenants. In this case, the town, as it develops a recreation facility. Pursuant to zoning code section 6-9-2, the town board intends to adjust regulation standards and criteria of the zoning ordinance as part of the PUD process for the Amherst Central Park to implement the concept plan that we'll talk about later this evening or later in the presentation, and future improvements that are not necessarily part of the conceptual plan at this time. The PUD takes place on a large project site, will have multiple components, and will be implemented over a period of time, several years most likely. Next slide, please. I'm going to ask Jeff Zakowski, who's the town's landscape architect and who's been involved in much of the planning for this facility and also in the development of the town's local waterfront revitalization plan, to talk a little bit about history and perspective here.
Yes, hello, my name is Jeff Zakowski. I'm a town Amherst landscape architect. The proposed Amherst Central Park PUD plan is part of a multi-year participatory planning process involving multiple leaders, residents, community leaders, stakeholders, and consultants. It started with the charter that was adopted by the town board in May 2018. It was part of the local waterfront revitalization program. The plan proposes a multi-use park featuring natural resources, a community center for activities related to environmental education, fine arts, active and passive recreation, and historic preservation. The park provides a place for people to connect and interact in a shared environment and brings intrinsic environmental, civic, and recreation benefits to the town. The area envisioned for the Amherst Central Park has been designated for recreation and open spaces uses as proposed in the PUD plan for a long time. A former golf club, the property includes golf, tennis, swimming, and civic uses associated with its clubhouse. The property is recommended as a recreation, open space, and greenways area in the town's bicentennial comprehension plan in Figure 6, and it's also supported by chapters 3 and 4, excerpts from those chapters. The park is a component of the Amherst Local Waterfront Revitalization Program plan in Section 4, which is projects. The park in its location is near the Ellicott Creek is a featured project for the recreation and waterfront enhancement in the town. Recently, the town board adopted the LWRP in June 2023, and on November 8th, the New York State Secretary of State adopted the plan officially. And now Ann Dafchek's up. She's been taking the lead on the overall planning and design for the park.
Good evening. My name is Ann Dafchek, Town of Amherst architect. So I would like to walk you through the concept plan. As you can see on the left, hold on, I do want to find the laser pointer. I don't know where that is. No. Yeah.
It's right here. Watch my hand.
Oh, that fell. Thank you. Got it. Okay. So as we can see, this property, for those folks who aren't familiar with it, lies between Maple Road and Sheridan, with North Forest to the right. The plan that we're focusing on for the highlights that we want to show you is the southern area. It's approximately 57 acres. Again, this is over 170 acres on this site. If we could go to the next slide, please. I'd like to remain on this slide, although I'm going to read off some of the features that you'll see in the plan, and I'll point to them. So in the southeast corner here, we're looking at having a recreation area that includes an ice ribbon as opposed to an outdoor ice rink. It creates a nice space that's about 25,000 square feet. Looking to have an inclusive, accessible playground around 12,000 square feet, as well as a splash pad adjacent to it around 6,000 square feet. The public plaza, which is approximately 20,000 square feet, kind of in this area, includes a winter market at one end, and anchored at the other end here, we have a restroom building that would have skate rentals, again, restrooms and changing areas for the splash pad, and folks who are, enjoying the park. The renovation of the former clubhouse into a community building that would include, the building is currently around 44,000 square feet, including the basement and the second floor storage areas. Looking to include a universal pre-K program in conjunction with Williamsville Central Schools at that north end there. We also see an outdoor amphitheater in this area that's approximately 3,000 square feet. A community theater here, around 30,000 square feet. The majority of the parking, you'll notice, is to the east, with some additional parking here to serve the theater and other buildings. New building for the Buffalo Niagara Heritage Village and its buildings to be relocated to, again, put it somewhere more centrally located in the town. And then again, enhancement of existing wetlands and a decorative pond on site over here. We also have additional park improvements such as playgrounds, greenhouses, gardens, pedestrian pathways, educational kiosks, and access drives as shown on the PUD plan. The construction of the access roadways, required mechanical buildings, public restrooms, parking lots, and supportive utilities such as storm sewers and stormwater management features, sanitary sewers, water, fiber optic cables, electrical, and natural gas services would all be included in this plan. The northern portion of the Amherst Central Park is planned for passive natural recreation, along with the preservation of the existing ponds, wetlands, and hardwood areas. If you go to the next slide, please. All of these items that are here in the bullet points are the things I just read while I was showing on the plan where they are located. So again, those are the highlights and the components that are included in the park plan. Thank you. I'll give it back over to Dan.
Tom, next slide, Tom. So the overall park plan that Ann just described is what we call a master plan. It's a central feature of the plan unit development. It gives us a good idea where things are going to go, what's going to be located there. All those plans and facilities she talked about will likely result in what we call a facility improvement plan. So the town would want to execute an improvement on the park, whether it's the theater, whether it's a pavilion, whether it's the roadway. All these things will involve individual plans we call facility improvement plans. So again, the town is developing the park pursuant to the plan unit development process as set forth in the code. Pursuant to section 6-9-2 of the town code, the town board will establish criteria, standards, and regulations with respect to the planning of the land and the arrangements of buildings and open spaces. Much of that will be set with the overall master plan. Facility improvements, the smaller facilities that you see located on the map, will be reviewed and approved by the town board as buildings, roads, parking areas individually. So those plans will go to the town board for their consideration. That will follow a rigorous review on the part of a Amherst Central Park planning team that will be designated and appointed by the town board. Members of that team will include the director of facilities, members of the town engineering department, the town engineer, town architect, and that's Ann at this moment. The building department, the building commissioner, the planning director, and members of the planning department, a representative of our police and fire services, and all of them will provide technical and administrative support and review for each one of these individual facility improvements, much like we do now for site plans for the planning board. Next slide, please. So this is an outline of that process. Again, this will be initiated through the director of facilities, who will take some direction from the town board, or it could be just implementation of a project that's been identified in the capital improvement program or some other planning document. Most likely it'll be at the direction of the town board. And he'll undertake the initiation of that process. That would include consultation with the planning department and the planning team to begin design of that improvement. The planning director and the director of facilities will determine the level of review. There's major and minor review. Those are outlined in the town's zoning code now. Those criteria are likely going to be utilized, and I'll get to that in a couple minutes at step 7. The planning department will prepare and distribute the actual application for the improvement to the team and other agencies as appropriate for their comment. So it could be outside agencies, the county, the state, agencies that we typically consult with many of the plans or all the plans that you might see in part of your duties. The planning department will post the application to its pending development projects page on the town website, where we put all the applications that come before the town, be the planning board. They're posted there. They're left there for folks to consult any of the documents that we receive. We typically post along with the application and other information related to that petition. Those will be posted to the webpage, and we'll also arrange for a sign to be posted somewhere in the park close to where the facility would be located, but certainly in a place where it can be noted and noticed. The team will then meet to review the application and any comments that it receives, make any revisions to the plans and the application, provide a recommendation and an endorsement of that application for the town board's consideration. And again, I noted there can be minor and major facilities improvement plans. Again, criteria that we have in the code now, we would probably utilize just to kind of identify the difference between the two. Fundamental differences, small scale kinds of projects, less than 4,000 square feet, outside of 250 feet or so from a residential area. Now, as a planning director, I have the ability to administratively approve those. That likely would apply to this as well. And then the majors are the other types of plans, and those would go to the town board for their consideration. We will prepare a report for the town board with a recommendation, any kind of seeker determination that might be necessary. That'll be provided to the town clerk to run through their process of posting and preparing for the town board's meeting. If it's required by law, the town board will conduct a public hearing for the project, funding that's related to it and the project, and any improvements proposed in the ACP application. So at that point, again, there's a lot of opportunity there for the town board to consider the funding and the plan itself before they make their decision. Town board will issue a seeker determination and make a decision to implement the improvement, approve its funding. The Director of Facilities will prepare the final design documents and permit applications, submit those to our permitting authorities, which generally would be the building department, the engineering department, depending on the scope, probably both. Possibly could be New York State DOT or Erie County, depending on what type of improvement it is or if it's access to their facilities. And then finally, the Director of Facilities will work with the different town departments, any contractors, to implement the improvement when permits are issued. Very similar to the process we follow now for plan review and execution that the private sector follows with the planning. Next slide. So with tonight's hearing, we're interested in hearing what folks have to say about it. Okay. With tonight's hearing, we're interested in hearing what folks have to say about the PUD plan. We're going to ask the planning board to consider the plan, the documents we provided, the information you hear, and make a recommendation to the town board. We note that there is simultaneously a draft supplemental generic environmental impact statement that's currently out there for folks to look at and comment on. The deadline for comments on that statement is November 20th. There's a contact person listed in the documentation for folks to direct those comments to. Just want to make it very clear, the town board is the lead agency on this project. They will make the seeker determination. So we're not asking you to make a seeker determination, simply on the plan itself as presented. The town board will hold a public hearing on the proposed PUD plan, same one that you have tonight, on December 4th. And then before they can make any decision, they will have to finalize the seeker documentation that will include the preparation of a final generic environmental impact statement and then issue its findings, again, before they make their decision. Is that it? Oh, okay. So comments for anybody here that, and we really appreciate written comments. They're actually much more helpful to us. You can direct those to me at this address, that email address, or you can telephone the office at that number. I'd be happy to receive those and include those in the documentation that we have related to this petition. So that concludes my briefing.
Once, if we were to make a recommendation here today and it goes to town board, it's ultimately town board that's going to really facilitate the development of this parcel, not at all any jiggery way back and forth.
I don't envision that. No.
Michael?
And Dan, just to make sure I understand correctly, this is really to provide a set of guidelines and some flexibility for what's supposed to be a very lengthy construction period if and when it's approved. And would I be correct to understand that with individual parts that are coming up, there'll be additional opportunities for input, for change, for making sure that, you know, local residents are protected, things of that nature?
I think there will be, yeah.
Thank you.
Dell? No comments. Barb?
It's a very large project with so many components to it.
I don't know if you're on, Harb.
I am on.
You got it on?
Okay. So this is a very large undertaking, which is going to take, it has a lot of components in it, and some major components. And I think you have shown us a flow chart of how the approving process will go for each major item. Is that right?
Each of the subsequent
Yes.
components of the plan would undergo a facility improvement plan review as outlined in that chart, yes.
Is there a timeline in mind as to, or a sequence of what these components are going to be implemented, when, and on a calendar?
I think that's still under consideration. I don't have a specific sequence, but as Ann outlined, and she can welcome to correct me if she wants, you know, we're starting in the southern part and will likely start on the eastern side, the North Forest side. But if you want to elaborate on that, that's probably as close as I can get to timing or sequence.
So just to emphasize that any major component, when we start implementing it, there will be several opportunities for, well, not the board, but the public really, which are more concerned about what's happening, to voice their concerns, to give their ideas, to provide input, to help the project along. There will be many such opportunities in the future.
I can't say for certain how many or when or whatever, but there should be opportunities for that. And I think if that's something that this board feels strongly about, then I would make that recommendation to the town board.
Please, yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Joseph?
No comments, thank you.
Carrie? All right. Does anybody from the audience wish to speak on this? If so, please line up, and when you come in front of us for this particular one, please sign in as you give your name and address. Ms. Shapiro, yeah, pull that down, please. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm here, Mary Shapiro,
You're gonna have to give, yeah, name and address, please.
16 Royal Woods Court. I'm here representing Royal Woods residents. I'm here to request that the town withdraw this application, or that the planning board removes it from their agenda until such time as the application is complete. To date, the town board has not presented, accepted, or approved an actual Amherst Central Park plan. This is the first actual public hearing addressing any part of the plan. So this proposal for a plan unit development seems premature, vague, and incomplete. It's not clear under what authorization this petition is even being submitted to you for review. No authorizing resolution from the town board is included in the application. The planning board is tasked with making recommendations to the town board based on whether Central Park Development Plan described is consistent with the comprehensive plan and zoning code, including the stringent development standards for the plan unit development. The board also needs to consider whether the plan is compatible with uses allowed in the current RC zoning district. Plan unit development does not alleviate that, and whether it conforms to the character in the surrounding neighborhoods, as well as determining if there are adequate services, utilities, and prior to formulating a recommendation to the town board. Seeker requirements also need to be filled. This is the type 1 action. highly likely to produce negative environmental effects. Unfortunately, the PUD application is incomplete, with only a vague visual concept plan included and an even vaguer supplemental GEIS to assist you in your task. The zoning code for PUD only mentions a requirement for the inclusion of a conceptual development plan, but that's not the only thing required. As I said earlier, the park plan has never been presented to the public at a prior hearing, and if this board was meant to review it at this stage, you would have a complete plan to compare to PUD development standards in the code. The development standards, although allowing for flexibility and choice of how to meet the standards, still need to be met. Nowhere in the standards does it give an opportunity to change or alter the development approval process set forward in town code, but that's what's being proposed here tonight. And I think you had the incorrect code up there, Mr. Howard. First, variance, what's missing? Variances are required. This is zoned RC. Livestock is not permitted, but it's shown on the plan. Chickens are not permitted. Commercial uses are not permitted. And there's no elaboration on what those commercial uses might be, although it was alluded to in the EAF. Schools and daycares are not permitted as a primary use. They're only permitted as an accessory to a place of worship. There's no description of that. The town still needs to comply with use restrictions in this current zoning code. As you're aware, variances are granted via another public process at the ZBA and not part of the PUD approval. Also missing is a brownfield remediation plan, something that's probably the top environmental concern are residents dealing with what is going to happen with the remediation of this brownfield. Other than a couple of vague mentions in the EAF and SEIS, including the removal of thousands of cubic feet of soil, no detail is given on required mediation. What standard of cleanup will be done? Will it be done piecemeal as portions of the park are developed, or all at once prior to development? Will fencing remain up where cleanup has been postponed? It doesn't appear that the town has initiated the steps required to assess or begin cleanup. Mensch didn't even finish their remedial assessment. No consultants have been identified other than to say the town is currently in negotiations with the DEC. This is not adequate information to determine if there are adverse effects to neighboring residents or if the park will only be partially accessible for long periods of time. There's no internal and external pedestrian, bicycle, and vehicular circulation plans. PUD standards require safe passage and separation for all these entities, yet no details were given. How will safe passage for all of the users of the park be maintained at entrances and exits and via adjacent neighborhoods? It's impossible to assess with the information given. A more complete traffic study with real alternatives and mitigations is missing. The flawed supplemental traffic study provided shows traffic counts from days when Sheridan Drive itself was under extended construction. This caused various lanes on Sheridan and Harlem to be coned off at different times, and there's even a picture in the traffic study of one of those such times. As this construction was present for a while before and after the date the counts were carried out, commuters may have found alternate paths to and from work, living, play, altering traffic patterns. Even still, levels of service at the southern entrance were unacceptable at levels down to E and F. The only mitigation suggested in the traffic study were putting up a light at the proposed Sheridan Fenwick entrance, despite warrants not being met, and putting in a crosswalk or a hawk signal. I personally can't imagine people trying to use a hawk signal on Sheridan Drive. It's a required in the PUD standards that people are not relying on crossing busy arterial roads to access the site. And it was noted that there is currently no safe passage for bicycles at the site. A more comprehensive traffic study needs to be done. There's absolutely no overall conceptual landscape plan. PUD relies heavily on landscaping for buffering of different portions of the development from the neighborhood, the roadways, paths, with unified development. Not enough detail has been given. There's no SWIP plan, stormwater pollution protection plan, drainage, floodway, floodplain plan as related to development. There's no details about the developments to start with. Overview lighting plan is not included. I can't imagine you looking at a site plan without a lighting plan. No dumpster utility plans, once again, something you would never do. No fire emergency vehicle plans. There's no rationale for an alternative development approval. There's simply no rationale given to create a unique development approval process for this park development. Initiating projects on this town-owned property needs to be done in the daylight in front of the public. Initiating projects that require the use of town employee time and consultants resulting in expenditure of taxpayer dollars, and the director of facilities has not been given that authority by the town board. Projects are initiated by the town board for a reason. We elect them. They're accountable to the public. Our town code is pretty specific that the power rests with our elected town board in a public process. Recently, the CIP process has been bastardized to fund segmented aspects of this development process, over $250,000, without proper disclosure to the public and seeker review for the whole development, as they're listed as type 2 actions requiring no further review. It should not be used to initiate projects that will segment the review process, stealing Peter to pay Paul. The town board is able right now to create an Amherst Central Park Task Force with entities made up of the town employees. This is done all the time. But it's not clear why they would want to subvert public involvement as early in the project as possible and feel the need to hide behind an internal structure. Creating this one-of-a-kind development process would set a dangerous precedent, as I imagine anybody who came before you with a PUD project would want the same treatment and would be counter to seeker, as seeker requires you to involve the public and every other stakeholder at the earliest possible time in a development. A plan unit development approval is not the way to accomplish changing the developmental approval process. The town board tried to avoid having this development go through the time-tested development approval process by exempting certain public properties, but ended up withdrawing that resolution after residents rejected this proposed hidden process. This board would be negated. You wouldn't get a site plan to review. You would not be able to approve it. The town has a history of working with town officials and residents together to create community amenities that suit everyone. No special approval process is necessary, and why should this one be any different? There's no development phasing plan. It's impossible to know what to expect in terms of brownfield cleanup, development, construction. It's impossible to determine what effects there will be on the public, etc. I hope the town will withdraw this proposal, and is frankly embarrassing for this planning department. Until such time as an Amherst Central Park plan has been accepted by the town board, or that this board will remove it from your agenda until such time as the application is complete and able to be reviewed against the PUD development standards and seeker can be completed. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, good evening, everyone. If possible, could I request that we get the slide up that shows the detail of the proposed concept plan of the southern part of it? That's awesome. Thank you so much. My name's Bill Vaughn. I live at 11 Fairways Boulevard, right at the, I keep missing things. the southernmost part of Fairways. Right, that tree, that's right next to my driveway right there, right at the Fairways Frankhauser intersection. I specifically want to speak about tonight concerns myself, my family, and our neighbors have with this proposed pedestrian and bike entrance. At the curve, you can see Frank Hauser Fairways right there. Honestly, putting this right here, it makes absolutely no logical sense, and I'll lay out the reasons why right now. First off, there are no other pedestrian and bike access points anywhere on the concept plan, so why are we putting one at this dangerous intersection right here? It's important to note, at that intersection, all along Frank Hauser here, there are no sidewalks. There are no sidewalks all along there. The sidewalks don't begin until you get in front of my house right there. So that's people walking in the road or on the grass where sometimes cars park and cars come speeding down. Very unsafe, obviously, for them to be doing that, whether they're going into the park or coming out. So that's a big concern right there. June of 2020. The town reconfigured that intersection that I just pointed out. The Amherst Traffic Safety Board recommended the reconfiguration of the intersection. There was a significant kick out from the previous setup, big grassy area, because it was deemed to be an unsafe intersection. My children were almost hit multiple times by cars speeding down the road, getting on the buses, multiple accidents, many problems. So if the town, the Amherst Traffic Safety Board, deemed that to be an unsafe intersection and reconfigured it, if it was deemed unsafe for vehicle traffic, wouldn't it also then be unsafe for pedestrian and bicycle traffic? I would certainly think so. So I do also want to point out, even with the reconfigured intersection, vehicles continue to speed down Frank Hauser. As you can probably imagine, people use fairways, and Frank Hauser is the cut through between Sheridan and Maple frequently. Every day there's multiple near-miss accidents. We see at least 1 or 2 times within a month a car speeding down Frank Hauser. They lose control of their vehicle and they enter the new kickout that the town put in there. So even with the reconfigured intersection, it's still so unsafe that cars are going onto that new part of there. Also, within the past month, the guide rail that was right there that paralleled the street and my property there, the town took that guide rail out. So the next time a car enters there, they're in my yard. So obviously that's a scary proposition, but when you add all this additional extra traffic, it's very unsafe for anybody that's going to be utilizing that potential area. So please reconsider putting that there.
Mr. Vaughn, let me ask you a question. Yeah. How often are you notifying Amherst Police of the issue with the speeding?
Over the years, I've been in touch with them multiple times. I haven't called them recently because of the work that I had personally done with the Amherst Traffic Safety Board, most specifically Chris Schragle. I've still been in touch with him throughout the years. The Highway Department, as they reconfigured the intersection, the Amherst Police were a part of that process as well. So they were very aware of everything that was going on. Each time my children were almost hit in the morning getting on the bus, we called to complain about that, obviously, which did ultimately lead to the town putting in a bus stop ahead sign on Frank Hauser as you approach the Frank Hauser Fairways intersection. So they were quite aware of the issues.
My point being that you're keeping the right people informed of the situation.
Yeah.
Hopefully they're coming out from time to time. Hopefully there's someone in the car, whatever. Hopefully they're putting cable there or whatever to monitor the situation.
And they did do that, and I forget his name, but there was a gentleman on the Amherst Traffic Safety Board who, before they made the recommendation to reconfigure it, he went out and sat in his car at the intersection for a while, and he came back to report to the committee and said, he's like, I didn't have a radar gun with me. He said, no one was going the speed limit. Everybody was speeding. He commented he witnessed multiple near-miss accidents as well. So that intersection is very concerning. So that's why I'm saying it doesn't make logical sense to try and funnel pedestrians and bicyclists right into that area. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Good evening. My name is Maureen Schmidt, and I reside at 866 North Forest Road. I also own homes at 860 and 850 North Forest. 850 North Forest is directly adjacent to the proposed Amherst Central Park. I'd like to thank the town of Amherst for proposing a park in this setting. I have 3 concerns I would like to express for the record and bring to your attention tonight. The first is a request for an 8-foot-high, maintenance-free fence running the entire property line between 850 North Forest and the park property, specifically 4 feet from the street to the creek. I have lived on North Forest for 37 years and have always enjoyed my privacy, and I am concerned that visitors to the park could easily wander into my yard as they meander through the walking and biking paths. I'm asking for 8 foot high so that it is not easily scaled, and I'm asking for maintenance free so the town of Amherst does not have to be attentive to regular maintenance such as painting or staining. Next, I would ask that all parking lot and area lighting that is adjacent to my homes be positioned facing away from my properties, and that the proposed new maintenance garage that is within 100 feet of my property only has service hours between 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. As many of you know, the residents of North Forest worked very hard with Erie County and the town of Amherst between 1998 and 2008 to retain the character and integrity of North Forest Road. There was talk of widening the road, adding turn lanes, straightening the curves, and adding sidewalks. It was determined by Erie County and approved by the town of Amherst to keep the road as it is. I understand there is not an ingress or egress on Maple Road to the park because of concern that the road would become a north-south thoroughfare, which is something the town doesn't want. I would ask that you consider an entrance on Maple Road to service a parking area for the residents using the walking and biking trails on the northern portion of the park. I'm not requesting a road through the park, but simply an entrance and parking lot off Maple Road. This would mitigate some of the increased traffic that will be directed onto North Forest now that all the parking for the new park is located off North Forest and Sheridan Drive. Thank you for your time. Please include my comments for the record.
Thank you.
Mary Ann Hoshberg, 1075 North Forest Road. And I support everything that's been said, and whatever's happening on Maple Road is a mystery to me. My comments and concerns tonight focus largely on the impact of traffic on North Forest Road, county section between Maple and Sheridan Drive, and multimodal ingress and egress in general. We are far more residential here now and want to ensure that all efforts will be made so our stretch of roadway does not bear the brunt of traffic for this project, passive to the north, but pretty busy to the south. For this reason, it is imperative that there is a second means of vehicular ingress and egress. If the proposed entrance on Sheridan Drive cannot work out, it alternately must be Maple Road. We would also need a second entrance to be available, Sheridan Drive, immediately at the start of construction, so that the North Forest entrance and roadway in general is not the primary means of access. We also want to be sure that this isn't a park that you have to drive to in order to enjoy it. I have introduced into the record a letter prepared following the December 2020 Traffic Safety Sidewalk Feasibility Meeting. The residents of North Forest, north and south of Sheridan Drive, are represented in the comments regarding pedestrian access to and through the park. There doesn't look to be much ingress and egress from the surrounding neighborhoods for pedestrian and bicycles. With Maple Road shut off, our Central Park is not continuous or connected with the Audubon side or the Amherst Park bike path. And is there a way for people to park on the Maple Road end to use pedestrian access on that end only? There should be creative solutions to mitigate these concerns. Additionally, I noted the following omissions in the application. 829 North Forest Road is identified as a very important historic resource, but omitted is the clubhouse itself at 772 North Forest Road as well. The mill race on North Forest Road near the site was omitted as being clearly identified as a significant archaeological site. 10-year build-out starting at the south end, omission in application is any timeline for when the north end will be available. Please do not make us wait towards the end of the build-out to enjoy the passive section of the park. Approximately 26 years ago, residents of North Forest Road County section between Maple and Sheridan stood for the first time before an Amherst board to voice concerns and stand in solidarity to protect the character and integrity of our area. In that moment, we started to paint the picture of what we wanted here with success. I am proud to be a leader in that over the many years. It has expanded beyond us, just us, in wanting to preserve this central area, and brings us to today, with the many neighborhoods surrounding the project invested in the outcome of the proposed Amherst Central Park. Thank you. Everyone in the very end, however long it takes, wants a good result. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Town of Amherst Planning Board members. Oh, sign in, okay. My name's Thomas Frank, and I reside at 5403 Main Street in the village of Williamsville in the town of Amherst. And I would, as far as the Amherst Central Park, at the first meetings, I was the one that gave them the concept for the Amherst Central Park as far as the Westwood Pharmaceutical Country Club. That is a major component in the town of Amherst LWRP, the local waterfront revitalization plan. And this has, this project reciprocates long-term impacts on the town and as well as the county. That the town of Amherst, the indigenous cultural history of connection that there is in the park there, and that the Ellicott Creek watershed is the town of Amherst Central Park Greenway. They use the term as far as the intellectual property rights, title, and interest, as far as the public participation. They forgot to put the Greenway in there as far as the term, as far as the, and I would like to propose a resolution that the planning board give to the town board as far as the Ellicott Creek's the tributary connection to the Niagara River Greenway. Ellicott Creek is a tributary of the Niagara River Greenway. And as far as the relicensing, they did the survey of the sinking houses in Amherst.
Mr.
As far
Frank,
as the relicensing of the power project.
if I could interrupt a little bit here,
You can interrupt me.
you may be a little bit advanced in your.
Pardon me?
You might be a little bit advanced in your presentation here this evening. We are, this is infancy stages here, and you're going into some history and in some in-depth of things that are really, at this point, premature.
Well, okay, sure. It includes the interconnection to the Susan Graylick, the former town of Amherst supervisors, Ellicott Creek Trailway. As far as the interconnection, the hydrogeographic topography of the town of Amherst, connecting the University of Buffalo, the North Campus in Amherst, that this is that as far as the Erie County and Niagara County, as far as the Niagara River Greenway, they control some $450 million of settlement that extends through 2050, and it has to do with the with the watershed, the floodplain, as far as the FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Association, as far as the underwriting of these development projects. And the second resolution that I'd like you to consider, as far as the Ellicott Creek, it has to do with the that it is a tributary of the Tonawanda Creek.
Right.
And the Tonawanda Creek is that there's history here as far as the.
We might want to come back to what you're, okay. Thank you so much.
Did you give me 3 minutes or?
Got 3 minutes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'll get something to Dan. Okay, thank you.
Is there anybody else? Seeing none, Mr. Howard, would you like to respond?
I'm gonna look to Dan to correct me or embellish as I try to do this. So, Ms. Shapiro's comments are fairly extensive. Still louder? Sorry. Anyway, Mary's comments were pretty extensive. I'm not sure I can address every one of those. I think we're pretty confident in the procedural approach that we've taken to this. And so, albeit she and I may not agree on that, I don't know how else to respond. There's too many comments for me to deal with directly. We have her comments in writing, and we'll certainly take those into consideration as we move forward with the process to the town board. Mr. Vaughn's comments, I think those are issues that we can look at as we formulate the more detailed plans for that area. The Traffic Safety Board did provide some comments. We'll go back to our traffic consultant with his comments and see what they can advise on those as we work that plan a little bit. Ms. Schmidt's comments were fairly specific, and we'll try to work those into the planning. The fence might be a little premature, but these comments will be recorded, and when we get to that portion of the project that might affect specifically the area that the fence would deal with, that won't be lost. That'll continue to be something in the forefront of the designers' minds. And then finally, again, I mentioned the traffic. We'll have our guys look at the traffic again with Mary Ann's comments. The historic preservation, the address that you cited, 829, and I couldn't really hear what you said about that, but we'll check the record.
You can't hear.
Yeah, well, you probably have to come up here.
Mary Ann Hoshberg, 1075 North Forest Road. Additionally, I noted the following omission in the application. 829 North Forest Road is identified as a very important historic resource pre-Civil War at the national level. But omitted is the clubhouse itself at 772 North Forest Road, one of 8 historic resources on our county section of North Forest Road. Cited, not all, some local, some pending, some big. And the mill race on North Forest Road as a significant archaeological site identified.
Just to be clear, the first one you mentioned, the second one is the clubhouse, which we know we're okay. And then the first one, you have to help me with what that is, because I really don't know.
829 North Forest Road is a pre-Civil War brick house. It's almost across the street from Mrs. Schmidt, almost. So it's down on that area, and it's highly significant. I believe it's on the National Historic Register. So you really have to protect that property, not touch a blade of grass. Thank you.
And that site is off the site of this project completely, but we are aware of that. Dan, what am I missing? Covered him? Okay.
Good?
I think so, yeah.
Thank you. Hearing is closed. Next item. Item number 2 is the request to amend the seeker findings for the Boulevard Consumer Square relating to signage, Z 1996-2, B, property located at 1565, 1575, 1659, and 1641 at 1703 Niagara Falls Boulevard. Mr. Baglioli.
Good evening. James Baglioli, attorney for Benderson Development, 570 Delaware Avenue, Buffalo, New York. I guess anyone need to recuse themselves, or can I keep going? Next slide. I know the board is familiar with this property. I've been here a lot over the last 2 years on this property. We call it the Boulevard. It is a zone shopping center. It has frontage on Niagara Falls Boulevard, Ridgely, North Bailey, and Romney Road. It is surrounded by commercial property. We'll get to the next slide in a minute. There we are. Oh, you go one ahead. It's surrounded by commercial property on almost all sides, except for a small area of residential in this area. You got commercial here. This is the Costco Dick's project growing across the street. And you have research and development, office park warehouse right there. And you have the TJ Maxx project right there. Interesting to note that Benderson Development owns almost every abutting property to this except the residential development, including TJ Maxx, research and development, the Costco project, and the project that is right here. So we do own a majority of the property that butts this request. Next slide, please. When this project was initially approved, part of the secret findings were there could be no ground or pole signs or building signs on Ridgely Road, Romney Road, and North Bailey. And I was not around at that time. I don't know what impact that was supposed to mitigate. But since that time, this area has become one of the largest commercial retail areas and probably the most destination-prone area in Western New York, and specifically Amherst. And the area's changed a lot. So we treat all those properties that we own as one giant shopping center. And we're making an effort to redo the backs of the buildings because they face other parts of the shopping center, like a Central Shopping Center. And we're looking to add wall signs and some freestanding signs to direct people around the area. We have worked with the planning department, and we're looking to change the secret findings, 2 points of them. And the language is here. And what it does is it avoids any signs facing any of the residential property and only allows signs facing other commercial property, almost all of which we own. So the two conditions are no signage shall be placed facing northerly within 400 feet of the southern edge of Ridgely Road, right away from the point at the intersection of the center lines of Ridgely Road and Niagara Falls Boulevard, between 400 feet and 1,500 feet easterly. And we have a diagram in a minute, we'll walk through that. No pole or ground sign shall be permitted along Ridgely Road beyond 300 feet of the eastern edge of Niagara Falls Boulevard, and that message center signs are prohibited along any of the roadways adjacent to the development. This excludes directional signs at driveways and other traffic control signs that do not have any logos or advertising. Next slide, please. So basically, everywhere in purple, we'd be allowed to have wall signs at this point facing all the commercial property. And pole signs in this area here facing the Costco. Next slide, please. And basically what we're in the process of doing is you can see we already started some of the work. This is the area where LL Bean is. This is the front of the store. This is the back of the LL Bean. And we have reworked the facade. So this is what it used to look like. It used to be looking at the back of a building. We have reworked the entire facade so it looks more like the front of a building. And we're requesting so we can have signage there because that site looks out on the TJ Maxx property. And as you're leaving the TJ Maxx property, you're looking at LL Bean, just the other side of it. So it's more of a branding of the entire area. And I think there's been a significant change in the 20 years since this project originally was conceived and approved. And retail's a tough market, and signage is very important for that. And also, if you've driven that area, you know signage is important just to get around and know where you're going. You get on site and you're looking for other signs to find some of the other uses. So we don't see any detriment in allowing it. We specifically avoided the residential properties, and we think it'll be an attractive improvement as we upgrade the shopping center.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, you would just agree, though, that the residential purposes along Ridgely
No, we're not asking for any signs to face any of them.
Oh, right, yeah, I know what you
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
You're consenting to the restrictions
Yep.
that are going to be there to protect
Yep.
those residential areas, right?
Yep, yep.
Good?
No questions.
Joseph?
No questions, thank you.
Anybody in the audience wish to speak on this? Seeing none? Hearing's closed. Thank you. Next item. Request to amend the bicentennial comprehensive plan for the .42 plus or minus acres of land from the commercial office to mixed residential property located at 2280 Worley Drive. Recommendations to the town board. Mr. Palumbo.
Take either one. Good evening, I'm Jeff Palumbo. I'm the attorney for the petitioner. In connection with the proposed request to amend the comprehensive plan at 2280 Worley Drive. Just a preliminary comment. This is the first step in a very long process, as you're all very familiar. The request today is not to rezone the property, just so we're all clear. The request today is to ask for a recommendation from this board to the town board to amend the comprehensive plan to allow a change in zoning. So the planning board will make a recommendation to the town board. There will be another public hearing before the town board. And if the town board decides to amend the comprehensive plan, then the development will move forward with a rezoning application. At that time, we'll be back in front of the planning board for a recommendation on the rezoning, and then back to the town board for a public hearing. So there's a lot of steps to this process, and in the end, after the rezoning, there is also another opportunity to be heard at the site plan stage in connection with the proposed townhouses. So I want to make that clear that we are at the start of a very long process. The property, as you can see, shaded in gray on the map, is currently zoned R3, and it's located at the northeast corner of Worley Drive and Ridge Court South. It is currently vacant property. Next. So eventually, as I said, we will be asking for a rezoning if the town board amends the comprehensive plan, and that rezoning will be for the ability for my client, Mr. Keller, to develop 4 townhomes. As I've indicated, the current property is zoned office building OB, and the current request would be to rezone the property eventually to MFR5, which is a multifamily designation. And we have an overview to show the diagram next. So again, anyone familiar with the area knows this parcel. It's located at the corner, as I've indicated, Ridge Court and Worley. Next, and while we're doing that, the question is, why rezone the property? Why not develop it in its current state of office building? And the answer to that question is that the office building district right now is dead. If you look around, take the drive anywhere around this particular area, and not only this area, but throughout the town of Amherst, you can go back behind Worley at Cartwright in that area and shoot a cannon off and not hit anybody. There's vacant office buildings everywhere. COVID really did a number on office buildings. People are starting to come back to offices, but not in a big hurry. It's just not a demand in town and has not been for some time. So the current zoning would allow office use. Obviously, it's zoned for office, but it would also allow upper story dwelling use as well. The neighboring parcels to the east are zoned commercial. There's a dental office to the east. Neighboring parcel to the west, it's a healthcare facility. The neighboring parcel to the north is residential. On the south side of the street, across the street on Worley, it is zoned either office building or industrial warehouse. Next. So again, there's the property. The size is 0.42 acres. There's 96 feet of frontage along Worley and 204 feet along Ridge Court South. And I've already gone through the neighboring uses, so we can go to the next slide. So this is what we're actually asking the town board with your recommendation to amend. This is a snapshot of the concept plan, figure 6, which currently shows the parcel to be a commercial office. And the request is to amend this map to allow mixed residential on the property so that we could build the 4-unit, 2-story apartments, or in this case, townhouses. Next. That's the layout, proposed layout, and again, this is a rough concept plan. We're required to submit a plan at this point in time to give you a general idea of what we anticipate. It's possible it could change when the detailed engineering is completed on the site, but right now, this is our proposal to develop 4 townhomes on the property. Next. This is an elevation that we have prepared. Again, a concept at this point in time. It could change, but right now, if we were building it, this is what they would look like. Go ahead. Thanks, Tom. Okay, so the benefits that we see for the townhouses, that we will provide residents in this area with something that has not been developed in the area for some time, and that is upscale townhomes. It will obviously enlarge the town's tax base because the property is sitting vacant right now and has been. Well-maintained townhomes will be aesthetically designed to be in harmony with the surrounding neighborhood. And the impact of the townhouses will be less, we believe, than that of an office building. So for all those reasons, we're asking for the board's recommendation. There is one more slide, I believe, in terms of the compliance with the comprehensive plan. This is all detailed in our application, but the plan itself, most importantly, talks about development of multifamily and to meet the town's goal of creating an interconnected mix of land uses. And we believe that this does that. It allows a diversity of housing, and as I indicated earlier, it allows an injection of new revenue into an area that's well established but hasn't seen townhouse development for some time. I also wanted to just have this put up, if you don't mind.
Here.
So my client did walk the neighborhood and talk to the adjacent property owners, and they may be here, they may not be, and certainly if they are, they will speak for themselves. But you can see we have put on the map in red those folks that have been contacted. 280 Bellingham, the gentleman said he received the letter, had no issue with keeping the lot or changing the lot to residential. 290 Bellingham, again, told us that they are not against building on that property and would not be a problem. 305 Bellingham, the gentleman was holding his baby and was more interested in taking care of the baby, naturally, but did indicate that he did not have any, he did not state any issues, and my client gave him his name and phone number if he wished to discuss it in more detail. 300 Amherst, and they also indicated that, that as long as we kept the lights down, they didn't have any problem, and that they would be luxury townhouses and shouldn't have any problem with that. And then 310 basically said that they were upset to see that the lot was bulldozed from the old owner, and we indicated to them that they would be approximately 100 feet from the building. They seem fine with that. So I just wanted to point that out, and again, if they're here, obviously they will speak for themselves. So with that, I'll invite any questions you might have.
Thank you. Brittany?
No questions.
Michael?
No questions.
No questions. Art?
No questions.
Joseph?
No questions.
Does anybody in the audience wish to speak on this? If so, please line up. You're fine with this. You just had to sign on the first one.
Okay. Dirk Rabinold, 5 Jeffrey Drive. I'm going to speak a little off this particular subject.
You
you
really
hear
got to
me?
stay on target here.
Okay. I like the concept of townhomes because that's where I'm moving to probably in a few years. But I want to recognize a fellow on this board, this town planning board, that served this community for many years, 38 years. I just again, I want to recognize Robert Gilmore. I believe this is his final meeting with this committee or this board, and thank you. I'm sure the public wants to recognize you too for your service. Thank you.
Nice to do that. Thank you. All right. All right. Anybody else? All right. No one else wants to speak on this? The hearing's closed. Turn me off here. All right. Next item, please. Item number 4. This is a request to amend the bicentennial comprehensive plan for the 33 plus or minus acres of land from commercial office to industrial office, property located at 2360, 2370 Worley Drive. Recommendation to the town board. Mr. Palumbo.
Thank you again. My name is Jeff Palumbo. I'm the attorney for the petitioner in connection with the request to amend the comprehensive plan for the property that's indicated on the screen, 2360, 2370 Worley Drive. You're all probably very familiar with the parcel. George Carl Drive runs off of Worley, and on the east side of the property in the front, there is the labor union building right there, and then there's the medical building here. So again, this is the same as the last hearing. This is the first step in a very long process. If this board makes a recommendation to the town board on our request to amend the comprehensive plan, then we will move on to the town board for a public hearing. So this particular property has been zoned office building for a number of years. And as you can see, there's quite a bit of land off of George Carl Boulevard. There's approximately 30 acres, maybe somewhat more than that, 32 acres, that's vacant and has been vacant ever since the property was zoned office building. And that's not for a lack of trying to rent those parcels or sell those parcels. Mr. Nucciarino, who owns the property, Arista, has marketed this for years. Is that my clue to stop talking?
No, it's just some little background music. Maybe to liven up the presentation a little bit. That's fine.
Thank you.
I didn't know you liked that station.
Yeah, no, it was a nice song. Mr. Nucciarino has done everything he can to market this property, and for the same reasons as the last hearing, there's no market for office building. So months ago, maybe a year and a half ago, there was a company who came into town and contracted with Mr. Nucciarino to do senior housing. That fell apart as well. So then Mr. Nucciarino and I met with the planning department and discussed changing the property to multifamily, to take it out of the office building and put it into a productive tax-generating use. And after the conclusion of that meeting, it was determined that the town had met with their economic advisor, and that economic advisor had indicated that losing commercial property was maybe not the best way to go. But recognizing that office building is not the way to go, there was discussion about changing it into something other than that. And that something in this case is research and development, because the demand right now in the town is for research development, and there's no available research and development land, or very limited research and development land. So that's the reason for the request and the change that is being requested to rezone the property from office building to RD residential. You can go to the next slide, please. So the properties that are shaded in red are actually the parcels that we are asking the board to make a recommendation on. The original plan that was submitted with the application included this area. That was never to be the case. That was a mistake on our part. The legal description should not have included that property. So we are not asking for any change to this property. And this property in this area is zoned residential. and we expect that it would remain residential. So the research and development areas that we're asking for are here. Again, this is the medical buildings here, the labor union building there. We left a portion of property here for office building use, just in case. And again, that came about as a discussion with the planning department. So the rest of the property shaded in red is what we're actually looking for. Next. So we've talked already about what we plan to do, so we can probably go to the next slide. This is the area at the end. The office buildings would be over here. This is the end of George Carl Boulevard as it now stands. Next. So as you can see, this area was included, and as I've said, that is no longer included. It would be essentially across from there. We have 33 acres that would be requested. It's probably a little less than that now. I think it's about 4 acres that remains to be stay in the R3 zoning classification. So we're down to about 29 acres. And you can see the frontage we have on Worley, the frontage we have on George Carl, and you're all familiar with the fire station on Main Street. We have warehousing across the street again on Worley, single-family residential to the east, and single-family residential to the west. Next. So 2360, 2370 is within the office building district. And again, the OB zoning would allow for commercial office use as well as upper story dwelling use, same as the last hearing. The neighboring parcels, as we indicated, are zoned residential to the east and the west, and the neighboring parcel to the south is zoned office building. Next. Same here with Figure 6. We would be asking the town board to amend Figure 6 to change it from commercial office to industrial office to allow warehousing. Next. This is a very, very preliminary concept plan that was submitted with the application. We're not really sure exactly what this will look like at this point because we do have to do detailed engineering. I know that there were some comments from the planning department that this would not fly the way it is. We'd have to change some of the loading docks inward rather than facing outward, and we have no problem with any of that. That is 9 months to a year down the line if the town board decides to change the zoning. So this plan is strictly submitted for conceptual purposes only. Happy to sit down with the neighbors, happy to sit down with the planning department if the rezoning does take place to work out details regarding screening, appropriate places for loading docks, and so on and so forth. Next. So again, benefits are what I indicated earlier, providing the town with much needed land for research and development. There just isn't any in the town. The proposed warehouses will enlarge the town's tax base, and it will address the shortage, as I've indicated, the land in town of Amherst. So we can go to the next slide. Compliance with the comprehensive plan, again, was detailed in the application, but many of the town of Amherst's research and development properties are nearing functional obsolescence as they were developed in the early 1980s. That's the purpose of having this research and development, to bring in new businesses into the town, to bring in something other than office building, which there is no demand. So the rezoning of the property will bring the reinvestment that the town is looking for, and it will result in context-sensitive zoning and trying to work as much as possible to integrate this, knowing that we have residential neighbors. So with that, I would ask if you have any questions. I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Thank you. Brittany, any questions?
I just think the term research and development is slightly misleading because the petitioner here really intends to just put up warehouses, correct?
Yeah, in the industrial zone, correct. Yeah, but we would expect there would be research and development as well, not just strictly warehouses. But yes, the primary goal was warehousing.
Warehousing, okay.
Mhm.
That's all I had.
No questions from me.
No questions. Harp?
No questions.
Joseph?
No questions.
Anybody in the audience wish to speak on this? If so, please come up and stand up Stand up here, line up so we know. Okay.
A little short here. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Giselle Lewandowski, and I live at 125 Oakwood Drive. I come here with over 92 signatures on a petition that we gathered in one day to oppose the rezoning of 2360-2370 Worley Drive. I am here on behalf of the residents of Oakwood Drive, Amherston, Berkeley, Mulberry, Bellingham, and other local neighborhoods which would be greatly affected by this proposal, and to ask you to deny the rezoning of this area. I will apologize because of the last-minute changes that the petitioner just put up on the board. I was not able to review some of those, but I would expect that those would be available for us to review as the public. So this is addressing the original proposal that was sent to us. As I have limited time, I'm going to be moving through this 32-page proposal rather quickly in order to address our concerns with not only the proposed rezoning to an industrial warehouse research and development facility, but with the discrepancies and missing documents that are in this proposal itself. I would first like to propose that this rezoning cannot be decided upon tonight for the mere fact that required documents have not been provided to the public, and that many of our fellow neighbors did not even receive the required notification of this meeting or proposal. On page 26 of the document, under the environmental assessment form, section 1 states that the proposed action requires a narrative description of the environmental resources that may be affected in the municipality of this plan. This narrative is not presented in this document. This brings us to many environmental concerns in our area regarding this proposal, and yet 2 more documents have failed to be attached. On page 30, the proposal states that the basic soil survey indicates severe suitability for the type of construction proposed. And although it states that there should be a geotechnical report attached, no such report has been attached to this document, or at least made available for us to see. This brings about major concerns for our neighborhood, as many of us already struggle with flooded basements, yards, and poor drainage due to the former wetlands behind our homes. How does this proposal plan to combat this and prevent our yards and basements from flooding further by removing the vegetative forest that is the only form of natural drainage that we have? The proposal only states that they will use our local sewage drainage and have a stormwater detention. This does not address all of our concerns of proper drainage or the damage that these severe soil conditions could bring when developing the proposed 33 acres of land behind our homes. Our concerns also stem far beyond the development of the land. According to this proposal, these potential warehouses and industrial offices will be tapping into our own residential water and sewage supplies. According to page 30 of the document, the estimated additional gallons per day of sanitary sewage discharge is 14,880 gallons per day. This is almost 5 times the average flow of 2,500 GPD. Due to the extent of this, an engineer's report is required that includes a detailed downstream sewer capacity analysis and how this project plans to handle this excessive sewage output. This report is also missing. The lack of these 3 documents alone should bring pause to this proposal, and the lack of forethought on how this will impact our residential neighborhoods, and the lack of preparation the petitioner has put into the proposal they bring forward. Not only will this build negatively impact our local environmental landscape, drainage, and sewage, but the plan to use our own local water supply is also extremely concerning. Our local water pressure is already below 25 psi, according to some of our own local firemen. This low water pressure not only brings difficulties currently to our residents, but has also been stated to not even be enough water pressure from a fire hydrant to put out a single house fire. A little over a year ago, there was a warehouse fire less than 4 miles away from our home. The fire not only required the evacuation of the local surrounding neighborhoods, but affected our own air quality, resulting in us remaining in our homes due to dangerous chemicals released in the air from the contents of the warehouse. How do you ensure that the same won't happen with warehouses now proposed to be directly behind our homes? Will you regulate what can be stored in these warehouses, what they could potentially be releasing into our air, into our water, into our sewage? And if one of them catches fire, how are we expecting our local fire department to control this fire when these impending industrial warehouses would drastically decrease our already inadequate water pressure? Oakwood alone houses multiple young families, small children, 2 assisted living facilities. These dangers are real and can have significant deadly consequences if we allow this to happen. The proposal also has multiple fallacies and contradictions. On page 13 of the document, section 4 states that since this site has been partially developed with offices, the natural and cultural resource concerns regarding loss of wetlands, protection of woodlands, and attention to soils and drainage have already been addressed. I would like to note that according to this proposal, the current acreage that has been owned and developed is 7 acres. The proposal is stating that the intention is to develop 33 acres of land. This is an extreme increase from 7 acres, and the proposal alone should warrant the readdressing of such concerns and require an extensive environmental impact report prior to approving any building or rezoning of the property. I'd also like to mention that in this report on page 12, I believe, it states that they're going to leave 9 acres of green space, yet on page 26, they state that they're going to plan to develop about 26 of the 33 acres, and I believe that number that was just changed on the board increased. So I may be an English teacher, but to me that math doesn't make sense. So my other concern on here is on the same page, and in section 4, it states that they do not anticipate that traffic counts and levels will vary significantly as a result of this change. Yet, the same proposal states on page 30 that the anticipated number of vehicular trips that would increase due to this project would be an estimated 450 trips a day. This not only shows a significant increase in local traffic, but directly contradicts Section 6 of this proposal. Section 9 also states that this proposed warehouse and research facility would increase our tax revenue in the town due to how many employees they would have that would come and shop locally. I'm afraid that we can't have it both ways. You either will not impact the traffic on a daily basis, or you're going to have so many employees that we're going to see an increase in our tax revenue. Oakwood Drive alone has made multiple complaints, I believe, to this town board regarding the excessive traffic down our street and the unsafe speeding of vehicles during all hours of the day. So you are not anticipating increasing traffic by over 450 trips a day? This traffic is going to come down our street. It's going to come down Worley. It's going to come down inevitably around our surrounding residential streets. It's not only going to increase traffic and noise levels and air pollution, but hinder our daily commutes to work, our children's bus routes down our streets, and increase the already documented dangerous conditions of speeding cars on what should be a residential-only street. We can't even get a stop sign put on Oakwood to help combat these vehicles from speeding, and yet you expect a proposal with 450 additional vehicles a day not to impact our traffic and the safety of our children, elderly, and disabled residents. This extreme increase in traffic also brings concerns to the proposal in this document of removing the dead end on Lyndhurst and creating a cut-through emergency access road to this proposed industrialized office park. What guarantees do we have that this will remain locked, gated entrance, only accessible by local fire and police? What is to prevent the petitioners or those who build these potential warehouses from opening up that gate as another common alternative entrance and exit in order to accommodate the excessive amount of increase in traffic? We've already seen locally some of these gates that have been opened for weeks due to not completed repairs. This is into a residential street. This brings me to Section 8 of the proposal, which states that business centers are a major importance of the health of Amherst neighborhoods. Here, the major investment into the development of a technology center only adds to the value of nearby developments. This is in direct contradiction. It is a statement made with no reliable data or insight into the neighborhoods that they are planning to impact with their building of these industrialized warehouses. The statement literally says that business centers add to the value of nearby developments, yet here we are to discuss the rezoning of this property from a commercial business park to that of an industrialized office, a warehouse. The petitioner is not proposing to build an area for local small businesses or medical offices or business centers that may perhaps be convenient for those who live nearby. This proposed plan will in no way benefit those of us in the local neighborhood. The idea that our property values will increase is laughable because when you remove our green space and wooded areas that provide privacy and aesthetic views with large warehouses that tower over our homes and a road that directly connects the park from a residential street, our property values will most definitely decrease with such changes, as can be seen with even some of the properties locally, for example, on McKinley Avenue, where they're located right behind local businesses on Transit Road. As of 2022, some of these homes, whose view is that of a Dunkin' Donuts parking lot, have been assessed at almost $150,000 less than that of a comparable home located in a quiet neighborhood and not directly behind a giant business center. I would come with more comps. However, we don't have any large industrialized warehouses currently built directly behind homes in Williamsville. Does the petitioner plan to compensate us when we find that our property values have drastically decreased? Will they compensate the town for when we inevitably ask for a reevaluation of our property taxes due to the decrease in value? As well as this, I would also like to point out that there are multiple places where we could potentially rezone to an industrial warehouse park. In fact, I believe the attorney representing the petitioner said in his last petition that there were multiple unused business parks that are sitting there empty that are not located directly behind a neighborhood. As well as these contradictions that we have found in the petitioner's proposal and the missing documents, there are further questions regarding the development of the 33 acres proposed, as well as that of the encroachment on a historically protected place. We have homes in this area that are over 100 years old. One of our neighbors has a home that's historically protected and even has signs of being connected to the Underground Railroad. According to the diagram of the build, the petitioner proposes to build directly behind this home. How does the petitioner plan to combat the encroachment of this historically protected property? How can you ensure that this new construction won't damage our own properties, our yards, our brand new paved street? How do you propose to create a thoroughfare on a residential street that will not only impact our neighborhood property lines, our yards, but even access to some of our own driveways off of that dead end? Most importantly, how do you ensure our safety as residents with this new proposal? What limits does the petitioner or the board intend to have on what is stored in these proposed warehouses and research facilities? What type of materials can be stored there? What assurances can you provide us that these facilities won't contain hazardous materials that leach into our air, into our local water that they plan to use, or our local environment? What regulations need to be followed as you are directly behind multiple residential streets with the intent to tap into our local supplies? As the petitioner already stated, there is no such area currently in the Amherst-Williamsville area behind houses. There's probably a reason for that. It's not safe, it's not wanted, and it's not a part of the community that we have all chosen to live in. There are several empty buildings that we could use as opposed to the property right behind our homes. My husband and I took 8 months to find our first home. We chose our home on Oakwood Drive because the quiet tree-lined street. We stayed in our home on Oakwood Drive because of the neighbors and the friendships that we have made, making us feel like a real suburban community.
Now, I have to admire, thank you so much for your hard work. It's a very detailed presentation. I have to correct you on something. This is not a rezoning tonight. As I read this is a request to amend the bicentennial plan. This is not a rezoning, all right? It's for us to make a recommendation to the town board on the bicentennial plan. At that point, if in fact you make the recommendation, the town board acts upon it, then there'll be something with regards to zoning. So a lot of the things that you brought up tonight are something you want to put at that time during zoning. This is not that at this time.
I could understand that. However, if part of rezoning with the bicentennial plan is to rezone it into an industrial park, I feel that some of my complaints are warranted here tonight.
I am not dismissing what you're saying. I'm just saying that you're a little ahead of the curve on this one, all right? The point is that this is to discuss bicentennial recommendation, not a zoning. Just so you know.
Thank you for clarifying.
Good morning, board members. My name is Greg Bennett, and I live at 6675 Main Street, also known as Mulberry Lane. My wife and myself live there. We've lived there for 23 years. I am directly north, at the north end of it, next to the fire hall. I think we could do a better way of putting something else in there. Graythorn down the street, they're putting $1 million patio homes in, and they're going up like wildfire. I think patio homes would be a lot better than tractor trailers backing up, beeping all night long, day long. I get it. It's his property. He can do what he wants, but I think for the neighbors, we'd be a lot better with a patio home instead of tractor trailers. Thank you very much for your time, and I'm opposed to the that. Thank you very much.
How you doing? My name's Philip Lewandowski. I live at 125 Oakwood Drive, and I'm here against this proposition. And just listening to what this gentleman had to say, seems to me it's a lot of fluff. It seems to be like they don't know what it's going to be. They're looking, it looks like to me, sounds like somebody wants to make a large deal of money, and they don't care who lives around it. They just don't. We got kids. We've got people coming and going all the time. Properties flip all the time in our neighborhood. They don't care. We care. That's why we're here. I've got a young son at home that plays in the front yard. I couldn't tell you how many times I've seen tire tracks cross my front lawn. That's just from the traffic now. What's it going to be like? How's it going to affect my investment? My investment's going to go down. I'm going to look out my front window and see warehouses, tractor trailers, noise, lights. How's that going to affect everything? We were told we can't have street lights because of the airport. How's this going to affect planes? How's this going to affect everything? That's not going to increase anything in the community. We have tens of thousands of cars going by that area every day. 500 isn't going to make a difference. It's just not. Sure. Yeah. That's what we were told, because of the airport. Yep.
I'm not questioning you on it, I've never heard that before.
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
I've lived here 27 years, and that has been what has been said. 27 years. We have no streetlights because of the airport.
Okay,
So it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense when you've got all that area along Worley Drive back in there, vacant warehouses up for sale. Lots up for sale. Put it there. That building that just burned down has got to be 20 acres. Put it there. There's no reason it needs to encroach on people's properties, people's investment. We work hard for that. And to just say, okay, we're gonna lose all that just so somebody can make a quick buck? No. I'm sorry, I'm against it. So that's all I really have to say. I'm just looking out for the safety of my son, the future generations that are going to live there. And it's not it. It's not going to work. Okay? Thank you.
Good evening, Tim Berry, 200 Berkeley. Completely against this project, completely against the proposal. My career, I'm a truck driver. Explain to me why anybody in their right mind would want trucks between two residential neighborhoods, all hours of the day, all hours of the night, backing up, going in and out of docks, whatever the case might be. Not to mention the safety aspect of it. Where the entrance of this is where Napa is. There is a traffic signal there. You'll have people coming in and out of work all the time, trying to race that signal. What happens when there's a wreck? Now you've got people trying to get through the neighborhoods to get over to Main Street. It's bad enough we got people running through the neighborhood as it is. We got stop signs on Berkeley. People still do 45, 50 mile an hour down our street. Call the cops. Yeah, they show up, but people are already gone. A couple years ago, they put a sign out there that says speed limit and read your speed limit sign, and it turned into a joke for some people. How fast can we get it to read? It's just totally ludicrous to have this proposal having warehouses in people's backyards. I strongly encourage you guys to make the recommendation of no to the town board. That's it.
Good evening. John Krempa, 110 Oakwood. I live in a corner house right at the dead end there where they want to make a cut-through street and emergency access, which we've heard before. Makes no sense to me because living there with the woods there, we've had kids in the past going in there all the time. Now that the forest is growing out more, nobody goes through there anymore. We didn't just have kids, we had transients back there, we had all kinds of stuff going on. That would be right next to my house. So, I mean, who wants that going on? And when they say they're gonna use it as an access road, obviously he said the eastern part of that, they're gonna take out of there, not gonna make that R&D. Well, eventually they're gonna wanna put houses up there. So now they're gonna use that road for them, houses or condos or whatever to put there, and it's gonna be tied right in to the property on George Cairo Boulevard. So, totally against it. I don't wanna hear trucks being loaded and unloaded, forklifts beeping, trucks beeping all night long. I mean, research and development, to me, that's not warehousing. I don't know how they do that, but obviously, Mr. Neutrino brought the property, and it was zoned one way, so he knew that. So it's his risk that it's gonna be left that way. you know, you don't buy something assuming we're gonna change the rules on it, you know what I mean? You don't buy in a wetland, okay, now it's not gonna be a wetland. So, I'm totally against it, definitely against the warehouses, definitely against, access road. Thank you very much.
Hi, good evening. My name is Clarice Stetter. I live at 134 Oakwood Drive. Thank you. And about 10 years ago, I received a letter from Arista, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, offering me to buy about 100 feet off the rear of my property. Didn't give any value to how much they wanted to sell it for, but they gave me a phone number to call. So I called the phone number. I don't remember who the gentleman was that I spoke with. I asked him how much he was offering that for, and he said, I don't know, give me a figure. And I said, I'm not a realtor. I don't own other property than my house. And he threw out a figure of $10,000. So $10,000 for a 100 by 100 strip of land for $10,000 is a little, and wooded, where I don't even have access to because I have a 6-foot chain link fence keeping whatever kids are back in the woods or whatever else is back in the woods out of my backyard. So that goes into the gentleman who said they were looking for a quick buck, because that's what it sounded like back then. Also, a couple years ago, I came in front of the town board asking for a stop sign to be put on the corner of Oakwood and Lyndhurst, where the proposed gate being opened up is, because the people drive down the street crazy speeds, and I live across from Emmett to the little 8-year-old boy, and I used him at that time to say, I'm concerned about another car driving on his front lawn and killing him. Now we're adding another large amount of cars coming down our street, and it just keeps getting more and more ridiculous of what the town is going to allow. We keep allowing new buildings being built, and there's all these vacant buildings on Lawrence Bell Drive, which is off Curtright. The petitioner's attorney mentioned it. They're all empty back there. Rezone that for warehouse. Put them back there, not on a residential street. And I would also like to know, and this was not on the petition or any of the drawings, how close to my property line is this dock going to be? Are these big lights going to be to light up my backyard and all my, you know, my beautiful deck and everything that I have spent on my house? Thank you.
Hey, Clarice, can I have the pen? I only have a pencil. Hi, my name is Kim Seibold, and I live at 111 Oakwood Drive. And I understand this is not a rezoning. We're looking at the bicentennial comprehensive plan. And as I quickly Googled, re-Googled to refresh my memory, livability is one of the tenets. Livability. We live there. 2, community character. Do industrial warehouses improve our community character? 3, shared direction. The residents obviously do not share that direction. 4, aesthetic and community character. In the 27 years that I have lived on Oakwood Drive, this board decisions have negatively affected the quality of my life with the decisions you have made and the subsequent building that has occurred. When I first moved into my home, it was described as a park-like setting. It had wildlife and green space. My new neighbors were so excited to tell me that this green space was protected. It was there for a reason. It was to protect us from the air pollution from the airport and from the noise pollution. Obviously, that green space is no longer, and we do not have that pollution. Or we do not have that protection from the pollution. It was short-lived. We are now surrounded by office parks. The beautiful trees that used to dampen the noise pollution and clean the air are now gone. I've also been a resident while both Worley Drive and Main Street were expanded from 2 lanes to 5 lanes. Yeah, that increase in traffic during my tenure in my home is astronomical. Traffic, noise pollution, air pollution, light pollution with all of the extensive lighting needed. Now you're considering an industrial park. Let me tell you further how your decisions have negatively affected not only the environmental and personal health to me, but also our personal safety. On our street alone, we have had cars broken into. We had a carjacking on our street. My home was burglarized. My home. How are you going to protect us with the increased traffic and business of an industrial park? How are you going to keep us safe? Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Leanne Ruisi. I live at 142 Oakwood Drive. I did not come planning to speak or say anything, so this is a bit of an impromptu put together here. I did not receive any letters. I was taken by surprise when my neighbors told me what the plan is for behind my home. So I just wanted to first state that I am in complete agreement with all of the excellent points that my neighbors have already made. Mine is a little bit more of a personal perspective. And what that is our street is exceptionally dark. We are not allowed to have streetlights on the street because of the proximity to the airport. And ironically, this was the main selling point when we bought the house. So essentially, we live on Oakwood Drive because of its darkness. My husband's lifelong dream has been to build his own telescope, including every nut, bolt, screw, the works, and do astrophotography. The dream began around the age of 10 or 11 years of age, as confirmed by his mother, and finding dark skies in suburbia is next to impossible. And the reason that we're in suburbia is because I have elderly parents on Amherston, and we needed to stick nearby to care for them. So anyways, sorry. We looked at countless homes in the Williamsville area, and Oakwood Drive, with the wooded land behind us, was the only one in Williamsville that fit the criteria we were looking for. So we've lived there just about 4 years now, and in this time, my husband retired and began spending his days and nights sketching, building, machining, tweaking, testing, retweaking, retesting his telescope. And he learned computer programming. He's taught himself like electronics and all this kind of stuff to make his dream come true. And it was only in this past year that he's finally completed all of these basic telescope portions of the project, where he's finally able to start photographing all of the celestial things in our area. And he's barely just begun this, where now we have this threat coming to us with these things being built behind us. Maybe some people have the financial ability to just pick up and move somewhere else, not us. As I said, my husband is retired. I lost my 20-year job last year caring for my elderly father on the next street. He has since passed away, and I am now caring for my mother, who is declining fast, so we're kind of stuck in the area. Between that and the economical circumstances of our world today. So we're stuck on Oakwood for now. So in summary, my husband has worked his entire life to reach this moment in time, to live out his dream, and now the potential of warehouses and stadium-like lighting and all the extra traffic coming down his street that he's worked for is possibly squashed forever. So thank you.
Good evening. I'm against this proposal for many of the reasons. Excuse me. I'm Douglas Ruisi. I live at 142 Oakwood Drive. It's about exactly three houses from Lyndhurst. And one of the main reasons that I'm against it is it's going to be an invasion of our privacy and quiet neighborhood, a neighborhood that many of the people who have lived there for years are raising children. When you start to talk about a proposal for bringing in industrial and or research, we have no idea what we're in for. It could be anything from hazardous materials that could be trucked in, spilt on their parking lot. When you increase by acres a surface area that would normally take up water, like natural earth and flora, and that's gone, you have pavement, you have to take that water and manifold or funnel it into our already overtaxed system of stormwater. And we know that this effect that this neighborhood has had flooding issues with the stormwater, not to mention the increase of demand on the sewer systems from such construction behind us. The traffic flow, if they were to use Lyndhurst, would increase and cause so much problem with safety issues, because when you start increasing the load of traffic onto a small street, a narrow street, that has parking on both sides, you invite the possibility of aggravation, impatient, and aggressive driving. You have stop signs at both Worley and Main Street. I can't imagine how backed up the traffic would be. And even if they corrected that with traffic lights, you're going to increase the possibility of more accidents at each of those points. Thank you.
Thanks. Hi, guys. Jim O'Donnell, 81 Oakwood and 80 Oakwood, across the road. It's kind of the same story, different year. Traffic on our street now, I do my paperwork from 4 a.m. to 8 a.m., and I'm home between 4 and 7 typically. There's 1,200 cars a day that go down Oakwood, and Oakwood Drive, the only street in the town of Amherst that jogs. They started it at Worley years ago, and then they started it at Main, and they met in the middle, and they realized we're off 40 feet, so they made a little S-turn. That S-turn, if you're driving down Oakwood, and some people, unfortunately, are doing 70 miles an hour. I have 7 cameras that document this every day. If you miss that S-turn, you're on the sidewalk, and that goes for both directions. So if you're on Oakwood heading toward Worley, which is north-south, or vice versa, instead of being in traffic or on the lane, you turn into the sidewalk because the street jogs. It's the only street in the town that happened. So going from 1,200 cars a day to 450 additional cars a day, and this 1,200 was before the Den Center opened, and everyone going to the Den Center is late for their appointment, and when they're leaving the Den Center, they're late for their pedicure. So Everyone is using Oakwood as the hourglass or funneling device to avoid five lanes of traffic on transit, which is actually 4 lights, equal to Oakwood, which is 0 lights, 0 stop signs, and an S-turn. So Berkeley, Ferndale, and Oakwood all are cut-through streets right now. This has been an issue years ago. They made McKinley a dead end because of the issues, because it was the first street off of transit. You know, it's the same problem, different year. Water pressure is my other issue. I got 30 seconds left. Water pressure at 25 PSI, I actually had to put a booster pump in my house, brought it up to 80 PSI. You shouldn't have to spend $3,500 to take a shower. If there's a fire at the fire hall, they can't put it out, 25 PSI. So adding 1 million square feet of roof line with rain and sewer and people and traffic, it's not the best spot to do this in. I mean, there's a lot of spots in Amherst to create tax revenue. And I know that's always like one of the first 2 things, you know, money. The guy that owns the property wants to make money. The guy that owns the property wants to make the money. The people that collect tax revenue, they want to make money. The attorney wants to make the money. Everyone, it's all what it's all about. But everyone that goes out and pays for that money works and lives in that neighborhood. So I'm not a professional comedian, but I'm trying.
How do you know this is 70 miles an hour?
Because I'm pretty good with I got a couple cars that do 200. If you're sitting in your house and you can actually hear the cars coming down the street, their tires like a throughway, and they're hitting passing gear coming off a main street, you know, boom, and that's 40 feet off of Main Street. As they pass, they go, you don't really see the car, you just see the headlights.
You're assuming they're inside.
No, I got my camera.
You have some technical devices that are determining that they're traveling 70 miles an hour.
Town of Amherst, they put the signs out there,
All
yeah.
right, just so that we can surface that.
Yeah. 70's not a common number, but in a 30, even if they're doing 45 or 50, it's too fast. Too many, too fast.
Just want to understand that.
Traffic softening measures need to be applied. City of Buffalo's way ahead of us.
Okay.
All right.
Good evening. My name is Connor. I live at 4009 Clinton Street. I do not live near the area, but after hearing about tonight's presentation, I would have to agree that I am in opposition to the plan. The reason why is because after hearing about the noise that the warehouses could bring, that could be an issue to the neighbors who are living around the area. Some people may be trying to sleep, and therefore it would bring up noise complaints to the town. And with those noise complaints, some people may not, or some people may feel that it's not a good area to live in, so the home ownership will then go down in the area, which could therefore affect future potential wise. The environmental issues it could bring, again, with the hazardous materials, it could affect the environment around it. It could ruin the vegetation, even if the warehouse may be built in the future, and if there's other possibilities for other future projects, not including the warehouse, but say the warehouse is no longer there in the future-wise, the land may not be suitable for another development project to be built there again. The traffic issues, again, the stop signs, I did have to agree with it. The congestion of the traffic, it could bring up road rage. It could disrupt the flow of traffic. One person goes, another one goes, could then lead to an accident, or anotherwise, it could disrupt the flow again, leading to backed up traffic for many hours. If there's an accident with the police around that area, it could lead to other roads and surrounding the neighborhoods. With the street lights at night, protection issues with no lights in the area could lead to more criminal possibilities with break-ins or other, dangerous acts that could take place in the area. And that is all I have to say about the project.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. First of all, those were excellent points. Those excellent presentation, one of the most thorough that I've seen in the 40 years I've been doing this. So thank you for your comments. Just a couple of things. The reports that were mentioned have all been submitted prior when this property was rezoned. The geotech, the wetlands, all the reports that, the soils report that were mentioned had all been submitted. Perhaps it wasn't as clear as it could have been, but they are there. And the other point I just wanted to make is it's not a question of this development versus no development. There will be development on the property in some way. Something will be built on that 30 acres. So all the questions that were raised in terms of traffic and lights and deliveries and so on and so forth, those site plan issues will be here no matter what is developed. There will be extra traffic on the street. Nobody is denying that. But let me say this. I think what I would like to do at this point is ask the board not to vote this evening and give us the ability to meet with the planning department again. Perhaps there's a better plan than what's been submitted. Perhaps there's a better zoning classification than what's been submitted. So we're taking these comments to heart. I'll meet with my client. We'll meet with the planning department, and maybe something comes of it, maybe something doesn't. But at least it gives us the opportunity to try to do something else.
So you're asking us
To adjourn the hearing, yes.
to some other point in time to be determined.
Right. Okay? Thank you.
All right. We are through this. Ready to rock and roll here? Start it up. All right. First item tonight was the recommendation of the town board to approve the planning unit development application. SB 2023-11, property located at 772 North Forest Road, 385 and 391 Maple Road. Okay, what we're doing here is some site plan review. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Motion by Dell. Do I have a second? Second by Michael.
Perhaps it is redundant, but just confirm that the very productive and helpful comments that came from the neighborhoods and citizens around there and potential users will become part of the record when the future, when this components of the project are implemented.
Okay. Thank you for that. We have a motion, we have a second. Roll call, please.
Shamil?
Yes.
Gill?
Yes.
Gilmore?
Yes.
Giuliani?
Yes.
Khan?
Yes.
Penberthy? Yes. Raphael?
Yes.
The motion passes 7-0. Thank you. Next item, item number 2, request to amend the seeker findings for the Boulevard Consumer Square related to signage, Z1996-02. B, property located at 1565, 1575, 1659, and 1641-1703 Niagara Falls Boulevard. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Dell. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Joe Raphael.
Is this with the 2 conditions?
Oh, yeah, there's conditions on this. Yep.
Right. Do we want to, for the purpose of this, discuss those conditions, please?
Yep. That the certification of findings be revised to include the following mitigation measures. No signage shall be placed facing northerly within 400 feet of the southern edge of the Ridgely Road right-of-way from a point at the intersection of the center lines of Ridgely Road and Niagara Falls Boulevard between 400 feet and 1,500 feet easterly, and that no pole, ground sign shall be placed along Ridgely Road beyond 300 feet of the eastern edge of Niagara Falls Boulevard, and that message center signs are prohibited along any of the roadways adjacent to the development, excluding directional signage located at driveways or other traffic control signs that do not have any logos or advertising.
Thank you, Tom. Does everyone understand those conditions?
Yes.
All right. So we have a motion, we have a second with the conditions. Everyone's okay with those conditions? Having said that, roll call, please.
Shamil?
Abstain.
Gill?
Yes.
Gilmore?
Yes.
Giuliani?
Yes.
Khan?
Yes.
Penberthy? Yes. Raphael?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes 6 yes, 1 abstention. Next item, item number 3, the request to amend the bicentennial comprehensive plan for .42 plus or minus acres of land from commercial office to mixed residential property located at 2280 Worley Drive. Do we have a motion? Motion by
second.
Brittany, by Harlan. Roll call, please.
Shamil?
Yes.
Gill?
Yes.
Gilmore?
Yes.
Giuliani?
Yes.
Khan?
Yes.
Penberthy? Yes. Raphael?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes 7-0. The next item is the petitioner. This is the request to amend the bicentennial comprehensive plan. The petitioner has asked us to adjourn that to a date to be determined.
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please. This is for at this time to adjourn this. Roll call, please.
Shamil?
Yes.
Gill?
Yes.
Gilmore?
Yes.
Giuliani?
Yes.
Khan?
Yes.
Penberthy? Yes. Raphael?
Yes.
Thank you so much. The motion to adjourn has passed 7-0. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes of the last meeting?
Yes.
Motion to, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion and second that. Roll call, please.
Shamil?
Yes.
Gill?
Yes.
Gilmore?
Yes.
Giuliani?
Yes.
Khan?
Yes.
Penberthy? Yes. Raphael?
Didn't get a chance to see that. So there's 6 yes, 1 abstention. All right, so that's the end of that. So do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Yes. Do we have a motion to adjourn the meeting? We have a second. All right. Brittany and Michael. Should be roll call too. All right, why not? All right, so someone motion to approve the meeting's adjourned. Folks, have a great Thanksgiving. I guess we're meeting again on the 30th for the training. At that point, we will, we'll have conversation.